What would you do if the only thing standing between you and the people you love was a freezing mountain blizzard? We live in a world that encourages us to push harder, work longer, and sacrifice our personal lives for the next milestone. We tell ourselves that we are working late for our family's future, but often we are just hiding behind our jobs because showing up at home requires a different kind of courage. Pull up a chair. Let me tell you the story of John, a man who had to get trapped in a freezing mountain pass to realize that no achievement in the world is worth missing the moments that matter. John was 38 years old, and he was a successful structural engineer in Denver, Colorado. He was a serious, disciplined man, a tall, quiet professional who took pride in delivering massive construction projects on time and under budget. His days were spent reviewing blueprints, managing site crews, and answering emails at all hours of the night. Outside his career, John had a loving wife named Nikki, 35, and a bright 4-year-old daughter named Lily. Lily was all big brown eyes and giggles, and her favorite thing in the world was listening to hand-carved music boxes. For months, John had been working 80 hours a week on a high-stakes bridge project in the mountains. He told Nikki he was doing it for their financial security, but deep down, John was terrified of failing as a father. He found comfort in numbers and blueprints because they were predictable, while parenting felt overwhelming. It was a freezing Friday afternoon in early December. Lily was turning 4 that evening, and John had promised he would be home by 6 o'clock sharp with her birthday present, a custom wooden music box he had ordered months ago. At 4 o'clock, John packed his SUV at the mountain construction site. The sky was turning a heavy, bruised slate grey, and weather alerts were flashing on his phone. A severe winter storm warning had been issued for the high passes, recommending all drivers stay in town. John checked his watch. If he took the main highway around the mountain, it would add 2 hours, making him late for Lily's birthday party. But if he took Blackwood Pass, a narrow, steep mountain route, he could save 45 minutes. In his mind, taking the pass seemed like the right call. "I can outrun the storm," John muttered to himself as he started the engine. He drove up into the mountains. Within 20 minutes, the light snow turned into a blinding whiteout. Howling gusts of wind slammed against his SUV, shaking the vehicle. The temperature gauge on his dashboard plunged past 0. John hit a wall of snow. A small avalanche had swept across the narrow pass, blocking the road entirely. He slammed on the brakes, but his tires lost traction on the black ice. The SUV slid sideways into a deep snowdrift on the shoulder, its exhaust pipe buried. John tried to shift into reverse, but the wheels spun helplessly. He reached for his phone to call for help. No service. Battery at 2%. Within seconds, the phone screen went pitch black. Panic set in. The wind howled outside like a freight train, driving snow against his windows. The cabin temperature plunged instantly. When John tried to restart the engine, the battery sputtered and died. The heater cut out. John sat in the freezing darkness, his breath blooming into thick white clouds. He was stranded on an isolated pass in sub-zero weather, with no coat heavier than his light work jacket. He realized he could freeze to death. He opened his briefcase and pulled out Lily's gift, the small wooden music box wrapped in pink paper. He tucked it deep into his innermost coat pocket, shielding it from the biting chill. Tears welled in his eyes as he held it to his chest. "I promised her," John whispered, his voice cracking in the freezing air. "I promised I'd be there." He knew staying in the dead car meant freezing. Walking down the pass in a blizzard was suicide. He was completely trapped. Just as numbness began to creep into his fingers, two dim yellow headlights flickered through the swirling white snow behind him. A heavy vintage snowplow rumbled to a stop behind his SUV. The cab door swung open, and an old man in a heavy fur-lined parka climbed out into the storm. "Hey, you all right in there?" The old man yelled over the roaring wind. John stumbled out of his car, shivering violently. "My engine died. My phone is dead." The old man grabbed John by the arm and pulled him into the warm, heated cab of the snowplow. "Get inside, son, before the frost gets your toes." The snowplow cab was warm and smelled of diesel, hot coffee and tobacco. The driver was a 70-year-old mountain local named Caleb, a former mountain rescue volunteer who had lived in the passes for 40 years. Caleb handed John a thermos of steaming coffee. "Drink this slowly." Name's Caleb. "I was making one last sweep to check for stranded drivers before locking the gates." John swallowed the hot liquid, his hands shaking so hard the coffee spilled over his fingers. "Thank you, Caleb. I need to get down to town. My 4-year-old daughter is waiting for me. Her birthday party started an hour ago." Caleb looked out at the whiteout storm, then at John. "Son, Blackwood Pass is closed. A major slide came down 2 miles ahead. No vehicle is getting through tonight. We have to wait out the storm at the ranger station at the top." John shook his head frantically. "No. You don't understand. I promised her. I've missed her school events, her first steps, her bedtime stories. I can't miss her 4th birthday. I have to walk." Caleb set his mug down, his eyes growing distant for a moment before looking at John with deep understanding. "Son, it's 3 miles down the pass in a Category 2 blizzard. Cold air doesn't care about your schedule. But more than that, you can't walk that road if you're carrying the weight of your excuses." Those words struck John like a physical blow. "What excuses?" John asked, his voice defensive despite his trembling. "You took a dangerous pass in a whiteout because you were rushing," Caleb said gently. "Not because of the storm, but because you were trying to make up for months of being absent. You build big bridges, son, but you've been building a wall between yourself and your family." John leaned his head against the warm glass of the truck window. Tears slipped down his cold cheeks. He knew Caleb was right. He had used work as a shield for 4 years, telling himself he was providing while leaving Nikki to raise Lily alone. "I'm terrified of being a bad father," John admitted softly. "So I just worked harder." Caleb patted his shoulder with a heavy work glove. "Being a good father isn't about being perfect, John. It's about showing up, even when it's hard, even when you're scared." Caleb reached into the back of his cab and pulled out a pair of heavy mountain snowshoes, a spare thermal parka, and a pair of thick gloves. "The wind is dropping slightly," Caleb said, looking out at the road. "I can't drive you down, but if you're determined to walk those 3 miles, you wear my gear. Keep your head down, follow the reflector poles on the left side of the road, and don't stop moving." John looked at the gear, then at Caleb. "Why are you helping me?" Caleb smiled warmly. "Because 30 years ago, I chose work over my son's birthday. I never got that night back." "Don't make my mistake, John." John zipped up the heavy parka, strapped the snowshoes over his boots, and checked Lily's wrapped music box safely inside his coat. "Thank you, Caleb," John said. "Go home to your family, son," Caleb replied. John stepped out into the storm. The next hour was the hardest physical struggle of John's life. The wind whipped freezing snow against his face, and the cold burned his lungs with every breath. He stumbled and fell twice into waist-deep drifts, disoriented by the blinding whiteout before spotting the yellow reflector poles again. Every time his legs buckled and he wanted to collapse into the snow, he pictured Lily's face. He pictured Nikki waiting by the window. He pushed forward, driven by a love that was stronger than the freezing cold. At 8:30 that evening, John stumbled out of the foothills into his neighborhood. His house was brightly lit against the dark, snowy street. John trudged up his front porch steps, shivering violently. His lips were blue, and his fingers were too numb to turn the doorknob. He leaned heavily against the front door, knocking weakly. The door flew open. Nikki stood there, her eyes red from crying. When she saw John covered in snow and barely standing, she gasped, dropping her phone onto the rug, and pulled him inside into the warm hallway. John collapsed onto his knees in the entryway, his hands trembling as he unzipped his parka. He pulled out the pink-wrapped package dry, safe, and untouched by the storm. 4-year-old Lily came running out of the living room, her eyes wide. "Daddy." John wrapped his arms around his daughter and wife, holding them tight as tears streamed down his face. Lily hugged him tightly, burying her face in his neck without saying a word. "I came home, sweetheart," John sobbed, kissing Lily's forehead. "I'm so sorry I was late, but I'm home, and I'm never letting work come between us again." It wasn't an instant fix, but from that evening on, John changed his life. He resigned from the high-stress mountain project, took a local engineering job with regular hours, and made sure he was home every evening at 5 o'clock to read Lily her bedtime stories. My friends, are you trapped in a storm of your own making? Are you letting long hours, busy schedules, and excuses keep you away from the people who love you most? Don't wait for a blizzard to show you what truly matters. Put down the excuses, face the challenge, and go home to your family. Because at the end of your life, no one remembers the meetings you attended, they only remember that you were there. I'm Grandpa Ben, and this has been Grandpa Ben's Story Hour. Thank you for sitting with me today. If you needed to hear this, subscribe and join our storytelling family. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember to cherish the ones you love.